Nobody really seems to know what exactly is going on with Caleb Wilson, but I can tell you this, whatever it is, it's not good for Kentucky.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode, we will be discussing what exactly is going on with Caleb Wilson. Is he going to North Carolina? Is he staying with Kentucky? Nobody really seems to know, but I can tell you whatever's going on, it's not good for Pope and the Cats. Also going to discuss why Kentucky basketball is better off with Mark Pope right now as their head coach. The perfect hire made by Mitch Barnhart. And then to wrap up the show, of course, we've got a bracketology update for you guys, courtesy of Bracket Matrix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if they win their first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would love it if you subscribed there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. What on earth is going on with five-star recruit Caleb Wilson? If you have been on the internet and you care anything about Kentucky basketball recruiting, you have seen news thrown out all over the place, whether it is in front of or behind a paywall, about whether or not Wilson's going to leave Kentucky for North Carolina. It seems like this has been Kentucky's recruitment to lose for quite some time now. And now we're starting to see maybe a little bit of momentum shift towards the Tar Heels. There's a conversation about financially, what exactly is Kentucky doing behind the scenes? What is North Carolina doing? Where does Caleb actually want to go? Who's he going to end up committing to? How does this affect Kentucky and North Carolina long term? All of this, it doesn't matter. I'm here to tell you today that nobody seems to really know what's going on. And once he makes his announcement on Thursday, which he's going to announce January 23rd, so 2 days from this recording, he's going to announce where he's going. I'm here to tell you that nobody seems to know, and when it happens, when he does actually decide where he's going to end up committing, a lot of people are going to look pretty stupid because there has been a ton of stuff reported from a lot of different people out there. And I'm just here to tell you, look, whatever you read online, whether it's in front of or behind a paywall, awesome. I would highly encourage you, hey, go support the guys at KSR. Go support the guys that got like Jacob Polachek, Joe Tipton, who have been on this. But we're not going to know what happens until he makes that announcement on Thursday. I'm still sitting here saying I think he's going to commit to UK. There have been, again, comments about whether or not North Carolina has been upping their money, whether or not Kentucky is still actually in this, if he has already decided he's going to go to UNC, about whether or not he is just a Kentucky commit all the way, and all of this doesn't matter, and it's a smokescreen. All of these different things, right, that have been thrown out on Twitter and stuff. If Kentucky lands Caleb Wilson, it's a great pickup. Defensively, you need some more physicality and some more oomph there at that forward spot, and Wilson will absolutely provide that at 6'9", 200 pounds, averages, I think it was like 3.95 stocks per game, which is steals and blocks during a recent circuit, according to 24/7 Sports. This is a lengthy defensive prospect who is coming into his own offensively. There have been conversations also about whether or not Caleb Wilson wants to be a number one option for a school, about whether or not he wants to go out there and be the guy that gets the ball a lot on the floor. All I'm here to tell you is that based on what I have seen out of him, and scouting reports will say the same thing if you just go and look him up on 24/7 or on 3, his efficiency will go up if his usage rate is not number one on whatever team he's going to next season. If it's Kentucky, he will be best served to be a secondary option to Jasper Johnson or a Caden Lewis. I think that his ability to score is noted. You know how to drive to the rim. You can finish there with pretty decent efficiency, but the jump shot needs to be worked on. It needs to be improved. There is a natural athleticism there. But if you have somebody like Jasper to play off of, I think he's going to find more success instead of being the primary ball handler and the primary jump shooter. I don't know if he wants to be the number one option wherever he goes. Again, a lot of things are being thrown out right now about what he's going to do and what's going to happen here. But I can tell you that based on what scouting reports are saying from people that have been doing this for a long time, scouting high school prospects, and just based on what I've seen, he would be best served as a number two option offensively and will show what he can do as a two-way player on defense as the season progresses next year. If Kentucky does not get Caleb Wilson and he goes to North Carolina, I support him and hope that he is able to find success next season. I think Kentucky offensively will be able to show a lot more of what he can do. I know that maybe UNC could utilize him a little bit more in terms of, again, ball handling and stuff like that, but I don't think he's going to be able to show anything that he couldn't show in a Mark Pope system on top of the polish on Mark Pope's offensive system. I think that he is just going to look, the plays that he makes are going to look prettier. The plays on defense that he makes are going to stand out more because Kentucky is going to lean on him quite a bit in that department. He can play, he could guard 1 through 4, absolutely. Again, if Kentucky doesn't get him, Nate Ament is in the conversation. Obviously, Kentucky's made his list of, I think, top 10 or 11 schools. So the Cats are still going after prospects next year if they are not able to get somebody here at that power forward spot, because there's going to be a large void there in the offseason. Transfer portal is going to have to be your thing, okay? I know a lot of Kentucky fans want Danny Wolf from Michigan. It's probably not happening. I also don't even know if he's got eligibility, so let's kind of get off that train until we see somebody like Wolf enter the portal. But Kentucky's going to have an answer for what they're going to do at that power forward spot. Wilson could be it. We'll see what happens January 23rd. Until then, I wouldn't read too much into what certain people have to say. Travis Branham put in a crystal ball for North Carolina. There's been reporting elsewhere that this is still a 50-50 race, or that Kentucky's going to win it. Again, let's just wait and see what happens. Regardless, it's not great for Kentucky because there's, again, less certainty. You're trying to figure out what you need to do with the money now. If you can't get Wilson, this is not a great reflection on, again, a lot of people reporting on this. If they end up being horrendously wrong, again, not going to call out anybody specifically. I would encourage you to, again, if you're going to go look for consistent reporting, Joe Tipton, Jacob Polachek, if you want to be able to find something there. But this is one of the weirdest. This is one of the weirdest recruitments that I've had the pleasure of just kind of reading into as somebody who's been doing this show. A lot of things seem to be unknown, and it doesn't look great. I'll say that for the Cats right now. So we'll continue to monitor it. Obviously, Thursday is coming up, and let me know what you think in the comments below. This is a weird one. I would just kind of take a chill pill on it just for a little bit. Okay, Kentucky basketball, I think, is better off with Mark Pope as their head coach, and it's pretty clear why. I want to dive into why here in just a second. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if they win their first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app, super easy to navigate. They've got a wide variety of bets that keeps every single game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel's got you covered. Again, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, continuing along here on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Thank you so much for checking out the show. If you've not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, would love it if you did so. Let me know what you think about Caleb Wilson in a weird spot right now. And I want to shift gears here to something more Kentucky basketball specific. Kentucky's better off with Mark Pope as their head coach as opposed to John Calipari. This, I think, has been pretty obvious just based off what has happened over the last couple of weeks. And look, even if Kentucky does hit a rough patch here to wind down the regular season, I still believe Kentucky's in a better spot with Pope for a wide variety of, I think, pretty obvious reasons. The thing that kept Cal going for his final 5-ish years at Kentucky, where the Cats had 0 NCAA tournament success, was his ability to recruit, and it was his ability to win some games in the regular season. Recruiting has largely remained the same, and if Kentucky gets Caleb Wilson, this is one of, if not the best recruiting class in the country that Mark Pope has put together in his first season in Lexington. Recruiting is the same. Maybe not in terms of personnel, like in terms of the Cats that you're getting, but in terms of star power, you're bringing in your 5-star guys. Anybody can recruit at Kentucky. Mark Pope can obviously be one of the best at it, just because of how much he cares about this place and how much he knows, about Kentucky, and how much, again, the passion and everything that he's got here. It's almost easy. It's almost too easy to be able to get guys that you want for the most part. Mark Pope is going to be able to keep things going just like Cal did. Where Pope has Calipari beat significantly is in the schematics. You've seen it this year, and you've seen it for the past several years. Mark Pope is just a better X's and O's coach. He knows in-game how to make adjustments. His play calls are better. His offense is one of the best in the country. It's second right now in adjusted offensive efficiency in the nation. And Cal just has kind of let his guys go out there and run. I mean, they're not running a ton of stuff. Out-of-bounds plays have just been horrific. Whenever it's come down to crunch time and opposing teams have applied pressure, Cal's teams have folded. They don't know what to do. They turn the ball over. Things get chaotic. He just has not been able to coach the game very well. And it's weird for somebody that's tabbed as a Hall of Fame coach and tabbed as one of the greatest to ever do it here in college basketball. For what's going on 6 seasons now, you haven't really seen a ton of coaching from one of the best coaches, so to speak, in the business. And if you've been watching my show for 3-ish years, you'll know that I have kind of refrained upon that a lot. I've said over and over and over, if you want to go back and look, man, Calipari, he can't coach like in game. He can't do it well enough to win. And a lot of people can push back on that for various reasons. But here's what I've continued to come back to. If you are consistently bringing in some of the best talent that high school has to offer, and you can't get them to perform at an even average level on a consistent basis, you're failing. You're doing something wrong. I understand youth. I understand growing pains. I understand inconsistencies. But, man, if you can't find a way to have 2 or 3 seasons where things click, like even if you go season on, season off, and things just click, if you can't have that happen, you're doing something wrong. Cal was doing something wrong for 3 straight years with UK. The X's and O's strongly in favor of Mark Pope. And then the final thing here, and you can argue with this, you can sound off in the comments, the overall vibe and the overall fit with Mark Pope, significantly better than it was with Cal, at the very least for the last 5 years. But man, I understand Cal I understand what Cal has done for the state of Kentucky. I understand what he's done for the players. I understand what he's done for their families. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the vibe of the program and just the fit of what the head coach is and the surrounding nature of it. I'm not talking about just like the ability to help whenever help is needed or to be able to support the players' families and get those guys to the NBA and improve their life financially. I'm talking about the Kentucky aspect of it, not the individual, the Kentucky aspect of it with Pope. The care that he has for this fan base, the care that he has for this program, it's visible, it's clear. It's in a different type of way than Cal, and overall, frankly, I think it's better. It feels like, and maybe this is a cliche, it feels like more of a family aspect right now than it was for the final 3 years of the Calipari era. Yes, La Familia. You have Kentucky throughout the course of Cal's tenure. Like, that's kind of the refrain. That's kind of the thing that we're going for here, is that, a lot of this is family. And it was, but as you started to see Kentucky kind of fade into as an afterthought for the last 3-ish years of Cal's tenure with the Cats, you started to hear things about what was going on in the locker rooms, started to hear things about obviously you started to see things with the frustrations and with the fan base and the lack of success. It felt like there was apathy. It felt like there was frustration. And it didn't hit the same. And now Pope has walked in, and things are just, they just feel better. They feel better. With a man that understands Kentucky almost better, arguably better than anybody. Understands what it means to be a Cat, understands what it means to play for this program, to be around this program. He has been so openly appreciative of the opportunity, and he's shown it in so many different caring ways. That's different from what Cal had been doing. And again, if you're not winning, if you're not doing the things that your fan base wants you to do, it's kind of hard to find it within yourself to reciprocate the vibe that Pope has currently brought in. It's so much easier to kind of be excited, to feel energized, to be hopeful, and to look ahead to stuff and be happy about it. For the first few years that I was covering this, it was a hard sell for me. And it was a hard sell for a lot of you. But Pope has kind of turned that around, man. I think the vibe is better. The vibe and the fit is better. And again, maybe some of you disagree with that. Maybe this is recency bias. Maybe you say, look at the first 8-9 years of what Cal was doing. Like, that was awesome. And it was, but again, it's not topping what's happening right now for me. I don't know. Pope is in a much better spot with Kentucky. The Cats are better off without John Calipari. And it's a man that has done a lot for this program. It's a man that gave us a national title, albeit just one national title with a ton of different teams that could have made it. But still, he was good for us. But it was good to move on whenever we did. Whenever they did. They decided to split. So that's my thought on it. X's and O's, better. Recruiting, same or better. Overall vibe, significantly better than where it was, especially a year and a half ago. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, I want to get into a bracketology update for the Kentucky Wildcats. Gentlemen, Kentucky's going to be a pretty high seed, it looks like, in the NCAA tournament. And at this point, it's all about closing out strong with your remaining quad one opportunities. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that Kentucky needs to do in order to win some of these tougher games. Before we wrap up the show, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks. It's the place to get real money sports action. They've got over 10 million members in billions in winnings, and Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all of the football action. Now, of course, it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, and here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 different players, and if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. You can get ready to run your game this football season by downloading the app today and using code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, it's $50 just for playing. So don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. That is Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, continuing along here. On the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky, talked about Caleb Wilson, talked about why Mark Pope is just simply a better fit for Kentucky basketball as a head coach. And now we're going to get into some bracketology. So we're at the midway point of the college basketball season. Kentucky 14-4. They've got 6 quad 1 victories already. And they're a pretty high seed in a wide variety of projections out there. In fact, if you go to bracketmatrix.com, which is now up to 69 different major outlets or analytics sites that have projections on the NCAA tournament, compiles them all. Kentucky right now is an average 2.51 seed. Now, about 20% of brackets or bracket projections have not updated since like the 17th, so you won't get that loss to Alabama in there, but a lot of them have, and a lot of them still have Kentucky on that 2 or 3 seed line. Now, 2 places have Kentucky as a 4 seed. That would be Andy Katz as of today, January 21st, and then Bracketology, which I had never heard of as of Sunday. If you go and click on the link on Bracket Matrix, it is just literally a Google Doc, which I'm assuming it's either some data professor or something like that does this. Bracket Matrix doesn't just throw out anybody's just random bracket projections. Like they could put mine on. I don't think they'd put mine on there even if I had them. So Bracket Matrix 2.5 seed, 2.51 seed. Let's call it a 3 for Kentucky, just for conversation's sake. For the Cats to be a 3 seed in this upcoming NCAA tournament, you could get higher than that. Can we get much higher? Yes, Kanye, we can, in fact, get much higher. You've got 9 more quad 1 opportunities on your schedule. The SEC slate freaking loaded. If you want to look at the game specifically, you've got road games at Vanderbilt, at Tennessee, at Ole Miss, home game against the Vols, at Texas, at Alabama, at Oklahoma, home game against Auburn, and then at Missouri. Those are the games here that you need to find ways to win. Of course, there are the 3 games against Quad 2 and then 1 game against Quad 3, Quad 3 opponent left in this regular season that you need to make sure you win. 3 Quad 2 games versus Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and LSU, and then 1 Quad 3 game against South Carolina. Shocked that the Gamecocks have now dipped to a Quad 3 opportunity because they're 10-8. They've started 0-5 in SEC play. They're not very good. Kind of stinks. But, yeah, so Vandy, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Tennessee again, Texas, Bama, Oklahoma, Auburn, and Mizzou. How do you win some of those opportunities? Well, first and foremost, you have to be able to find ways to win the games at home, which would be against Tennessee and Auburn. Auburn, obviously, one of, if not the best team in the nation. You got to find a win you have to find a way to win that one at Rupp, just because it's at Rupp. If this was in Auburn, different conversation because road environments are real in the SEC. But man, you got to find a way to win that one at home. Against Tennessee, offensively, Vols are not as good as their certainly is not as good as their defense is, but they have weaknesses. Kentucky can win that game. So it really just comes down to those 7 road games. What are the 2 things that Kentucky needs to do in order to kind of start finding victories in tough spots, as they've done against Mississippi State and Texas A&M and Florida? Well, they need to push inside the top 60 in adjusted defensive efficiency. In my opinion, Kentucky needs to do that. Why? Because that would take their adjusted defensive efficiency to almost right at 100, which is, I believe, defensive and offensive efficiency is how many points you either score or allow per 100 possessions. Adjusted, I think, is adjusted for strength of opponent. So you are, in essence, against your schedule, getting 100 points, allowing 100 points every 100 possessions. So 1 trip down the floor, you give up a point. You can live with 60th or higher because your offensive efficiency is 125.2, which is 2nd in the country. Auburn, by the way, is 1st at 131. Just shows you how good the Tigers are this season. But for you to be about 25 points better than your average opponent, trips up and down the floor, that will allow you to win or be extremely competitive in all of those 7 Quad 1 road games. Because even if you're playing a team like Tennessee on the road, obviously in that game, your projected defensive and offensive efficiencies are going to be much tighter, closer to each other. But to have that 25-point gap, even matchups will not, how do I phrase this? Matchups will not be predicted as losses with that large of a gap against your average opponent, right? So if you play a tougher team like Tennessee, you're not going to see, if you run metrics on that or whatever, if you just want to get a projection for it, you're not going to see all of a sudden, well, Kentucky in this game is projected to have 118 points per 100 possessions, and Tennessee's supposed to have 117 because of how bad Kentucky's defense is, and this is the way they match up, and blah, 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 blah. The 25-point gap against an average opponent will be enough to carry you against even really good teams like Auburn, like Tennessee, like Bama. You're going to be either extremely competitive or you're going to win those matchups. Whereas right now, Kentucky is sitting at what? Almost 102, which, by the way, you may say, well, that's not really much. It genuinely is. If you think about it, that's a bucket, essentially, extra bucket that could be factoring in. That may be a huge turning point in a lot of these games just because of how tight and down to the wire that they can be. We've seen this already against Mississippi State, and then obviously against Alabama. Things can get really, really tight, and 2 points can go a long way at any given moment. So first thing you need to do, you need to push inside the top 60 just to get about underneath or at 100 points every 100 possessions because of what your offense is doing. I think your offense is going to keep not humming along, but keep playing pretty well. The second thing you need to do is also defensive. You need to cut underneath 50% allowed at the rim, or inside the arc, rather, I should say. It's going to take some major work. Kentucky right now in the season is at 51.9%. That's 217 nationally. In SEC play, they're giving up 60% at the rim, which is just horrendous. To be fair, Kentucky has played a lot of really, really tough offenses so far, and teams that that Kentucky just doesn't really match up well against. And it doesn't really get much easier from here on out, but still, you're going to have to get more stops at the rim if you're going to be competitive or win these Q1 games. You have to. That's essentially the only thing that Kentucky doesn't do well outside of creating turnovers. They're good in their three-point defense. They don't allow a ton of offensive rebounds. They don't put their opponent on the line a ton. They just have to. They block shots. They just have to. They have to guard the basket better. And yeah, I think that is going to be the determining factor in whether or not you make the Final Four or win a national title, is whether or not you protect the rim, because not every single game is going to be a game where you shoot 40% from three or you make 12 or 13 threes. It's just not going to happen. So Kentucky right now, again, 2.51 seed. We'll see if they are able to execute here down the stretch, because they've got so many opportunities, but it starts on the defensive end. They should finish a 4 seed or higher. And if they can do that, I think they're in a good spot. Matchup in the first and second rounds pending. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Oh, that is the wrong hotkey. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.